Well, I grew up in Oakland, California. In high school, I was a wrestler, and then after high school, I wanted to go to community college to wrestle. My friend who was on the wrestling team with me, Greg, he was murdered. It kind of shattered my world. It was pretty traumatic for me because he was really one of the reasons why I was going to community college. But when he was killed, it just threw me. And so I was sitting in class at Laney Community College, and the student body president came in and said, "We have an opening on the student council, and we'd like all the students interested in serving on student council to come and participate." Well, my friend's death, it left sort of a void. So I showed up at the meeting, and I was the only student to show up at the meeting. So they picked me, and I became president of the interclub council on the campus, and eventually I became student body president. And so when the children the young people in 1970 were shot at Kent State, we, the student leaders from all over the country, we started our protests. And we would protest the killing of the students. And we decided to be part of a march. It was a historic march. Reverend Cecil Williams was involved with that march. Jesse Jackson came to town and was involved in that march. And Ron Dellums was involved with that march. We made a mock casket to represent the students that were killed on Kent State by the National Guard. So I heard Ron speak, and I was inspired by that. And I got a bunch of students, and we volunteered in his campaign to help him get elected. So Ron Dellums in Northern California became the first African-American elected to Congress. And as students, we helped him, get elected. And I started on a long career with him at that time. But also in the 70s, Shirley Chisholm became the first African-American woman running for president of the United States. We were her California delegation. We ran that campaign, and we helped her get a significant portion of the California vote. So significant that we became delegates to the Democratic Convention in Miami, Florida. I think that was very important because Shirley Chisholm was talking about, the same issues that so many civil rights leaders have talked about over the years. Who's paying attention to the issue of poverty? Who's looking at discrimination and the unequal treatment of young African-American men and women. And so we listened to that, and we knew that Shirley Chisholm had the best platform. And as she would say on the campaign trail, "I am trying to break into the all men's club." And I believe that in that election, of Shirley Chisholm's election and our involvement, that we planted very important seeds that eventually became the foundation for President Barack Obama's election. Because after Shirley came Jesse, and people started getting the idea that maybe it was, as King says, the content of a person's character that meant the most. And then I realized an important point about all of this, and that is that each generation of political leaders has a responsibility to mentor the next generation of political leaders. Ron Dellums mentored the people that were with him. Me as a young man, never figuring I'd end up in the State House. He mentored me, and I became a member of the California State Assembly and an advocate against human trafficking and for young men and boys of color. So we understood from Ron Dellums our obligation to train the next generation of leaders so we can continue this march toward freedom.